All right, hello there. Welcome to another We've Been Hearing video. Today's video, we are going back into fantasy football week 13 rankings. I say back to, but we're going back to our weekly rankings, and it's week 13. I gotta say, it's been a blur. Like, when I mean it's been a blur, like quite literally, time has just went by, and just like that, your teams are cemented into good status, bad status. You're in the playoff race. You're locked in for the playoffs. You're eliminated from the playoffs. A lot has already been cemented. Gotta say, for me, doing hot in one of my leagues, not doing hot in the other. So it's just been, oh man, fantasy football is fantasy football. Injuries and all kinds of other stuff that just happened that you don't expect. But anyway, back to what matters. If you're new to this video, you don't know how it works. Basically, the top 20 rankings for both running backs and receivers. I do not say start or bench because I'm not going to tell you whether or not to start Justin Jefferson and the players like that of this world. If we just scroll down to running backs, for example, you're obviously going to start Austin Eckler, Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, all those names. So what I do is I rank from 21 to 40 for running backs, 21 to 50 for wide receivers because they're much more relevant even if you get past 41, 42. Also, just to make sure we check all of our boxes off, we get through all of y'all for all y'all daily fantasy players or all you players who have God squads and need to make those decisions anyway. I will be saying my favorite 3 players from 1 through 10, 11 through 20, 21 through 30, and so on and so forth. And without further ado, let's get right into it. So looking at this right now. Okay, so looking at this right now, I can tell you, Jeff Wilson Jr. definitely going to want to start him, even if Raheem Mostert does play. He's just an important part of what Miami's wanting to do, in which develop the run game more and more and more every week. But also, Jeff Wilson, when he has the ball in his hands, he looks pretty explosive. He didn't do it that much against the Houston Texans, but they didn't really need to do too much. They kind of got it done through the air. So it was as simple as, oh, let's just do it what's working, and that was that. So I would say Jeff Wilson Jr. definitely start. Miles Sanders against Tennessee. Call me crazy, but you probably should bench. Obviously, Miles Sanders is very touchdown dependent, but the only reason why I would bench against Tennessee is because Tennessee's run defense is really elite. Their pass defense, not so much. I think that they're going to hold Philly to the ground, and the only way Miles Sanders does okay is if he gets a touchdown. So if he gets a touchdown, great. But if not, I wouldn't expect the world out of him in terms of yardage. So I would say Miles Sanders is a low-end flex if you're really touchdown hopeful. But I would not look at that matchup and be too excited about it. Cordell Patterson against Pittsburgh D. I feel like since TJ Watt has come back, it's just been a lot harder for opposing offenses to get it going. So I would say look at Cordell Patterson as a touchdown dependent kind of guy. Also, Falcons have been very iffy with their offense. One moment they look solid, one moment they look bad. So I'd be very concerned if you had to start Cordell, but he can always explode in any given game. So I understand the appeal to start him. Devin Singletary, I'm going to bench. My reason being is New England does a hell of a job at limiting players. Now, I will say, I think that Buffalo wide receivers will go off because I think Josh Allen's too good if healthy, but the ground game, I just don't see it being too prevalent in this game. I definitely would say if you expect Singletary to get some catches from the backfield, by all means, go ahead and start him PPR. I just wouldn't be too excited about the ground game against New England. We got Isaiah Pacheco against Cincinnati. Isaiah Pacheco, I would say low and flex. He didn't look entirely good. Got a touchdown finally, his first of this. I believe it was his first of the season. But Isaiah Pacheco, I would say low on flex. Doesn't look phenomenal, but KC's high-powered offense will be able to keep it going, especially if they pull away, which is very possible against Cincinnati, and also which is the AFC Championship rematch for this year. Antonio Gibson against New York Giants. I'm going to bench. It's going to be a close match, and I expect Brian Robinson to probably get a lot more work on the ground. But in terms of Antonio Gibson doing what he's got to do as a change of pace back, I see it being a lot harder because I don't see their offense rolling. I think it'll be like, Probably somewhat of like a 17-20 type of game. And I just don't think Antonio Gibson is really going to shine in that environment. Keep it going. Gus Edwards against Denver. I would say touchdown dependent, low and flex. I understand if you have to start him because you need that touchdown. But against Denver's D, as bad as that team is, it's because of their offense, not because of their defense. I would still sway away from it if you can. DeAndre Swift against Jacksonville. I would say, again, another low end flex with with the higher ceiling. Problem is he hasn't been healthy, so DeAndre Swift hasn't looked like himself, especially since they're not feeding him the ball in opportunities where he can make it work. But they're feeding him in the red zone. They're giving him opportunities. They're giving him touch to get touchdowns. So I probably would say, I would say a decent flex. AJ Dillon against Chicago. I gotta say, if you were ever gonna start AJ Dillon with some sort of confidence, it's got to be against Chicago. Chicago's D is abysmal. Definitely could get the ground game working against Chicago. Decent start. Latavius Murray against Baltimore. I'm not starting any Broncos player with confidence. I just don't care, dude. I would much rather start Brian Robinson Jr., even though I think that game's going to be tight. But I don't want to start any Broncos offensive player unless it's Courtland Sutton, and it has to be like PPR, because in standard, even then, what's Courtland Sutton doing? Jaylen Warren against Atlanta. I got to say, if Najee's out, you obviously have to start Jaylen Warren. If Najee's in, I would, again, sway away. As you can see with a lot of these running backs, it's very iffy. And that's why you, especially early on in the season, you spend what you spend on those picks for guys like Nick Chubb, Austin Eckler, Ramondre Stevenson, Jonathan Taylor, like all these guys. Because really, once you get... Oh, I didn't even say Tony Pollard yet. Nope. No, Tony Pollard's top 20. What am I saying? But you get what I'm saying? Like, a lot of these names are a lot more iffy. Kareem Hunt against Houston. I mean, Houston has shown time and time again that they can get the rock pounded on them. So I am still going to keep it that way. Roll with Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. Absolute desperation flex. Absolutely desperation. Kyren Williams. Rams offense looks horrible. Bench. And like I said, these names, honestly, you're benching everyone here. Unless Joe Mixon's limited. If he does return, you can start Samaje Perine. Against KC, they could pass it a lot too. So this might be a low-key, sneaky flex. But yeah, running backs in general are just really, really rough because you cannot start any of these below 40 guys. So looking at our favorites from 1 to 10 and so on and so forth. 1 through 10, we're going to roll with... I'm going to say Ramondre Stevenson, Nick Chubb, and this is a tough one. Ramondre Stevenson, Nick Chubb, and we'll roll with Austin Eckler because I feel like his production is going to be more so guaranteed. I actually like it a lot more. I'm a little more hesitant because, Derrick Henry is obviously Derrick Henry and Kenneth Walker has been going off, but I definitely think against the Rams, I don't think it'll be too competitive. Yes, they'll run the ball, but I don't think their offense is going to be pushing the pace up too much, and Kenneth Walker is capable of getting catches, so I would leave it at Austin Eckler, Ramondre Stevenson, because against Buffalo, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. That's going to be something that you can definitely look into. And and Nick Chubb. Okay, Nick Chubb against Texans again, get the rock pounded against them. 11 through 20, we're going to go with 11 through 20, we're going to go with Saquon, not Dalvin. Oh man, these names. So we're gonna go with Saquon, Tony Pollard, and Rachaad White. 11 through 20 is a little rough, but Tony Pollard you got to get because he's so explosive. Rachaad White, even if Fournette does come back, I'm assuming he'd be limited because he missed last week. I doubt he'd be a full go, and even then, Rachaad White just looks like the better player from the last game onwards. And then, as I said, Saquon, because Saquon looks super good this year. Again, it seems like a 17-20 kind of game, but I think that Saquon can sneak in a touchdown. 21 through 30, I would say Jeff Wilson Jr. against his former team. DeAndre Swift at 28. And oof, this is tough. We're actually going to leave it at those two. I don't feel confident in saying, I mean, if I had to pick, I would say something like AJ Dillon. I'm just not entirely confident like the other two. 31 through 40, gotta go with Brian Robinson Jr. off of the week he just had. Then we can go, Jaylen Warren, I guess, depending on the Najee situation. And I would really just leave it at that, because that's just gross. Moving here to wide receivers, though. All right, we're back. Looking at receivers, we got 21 Brandon Ayuk. I would say you got to start just because San Fran's offense looks really solid. And they've continued to time and time again to prove that Brandon Ayuk can be explosive in this offense. So him and Deebo, you have to start against Miami, in which you is assume going to be like a 27-31 kind of game. Definitely going to be more so on the high scoring end than on the low scoring end. I would start actually just both of them. Christian Watson against Chicago. Again, very touchdown dependent, and the touchdowns that he gets makes his game look better than what it is, if I'm being honest. But against Chicago, you gotta get him in there. You gotta start him. Devonta Smith against Tennessee. I don't see them running the ball a whole lot, but they will pass the ball a whole lot better because Tennessee's pass defense isn't as nearly as good as its run defense. So Devonta Smith, I'm gonna go ahead and start. Now the absolute most confidence, but I will start him. George Pickens, same thing. You got to start him. Kenny Pickett's getting it run a little bit more, looking a little bit more confident, a little bit more mature. George Pickens, this is one of his favorite targets, if not his favorite target. So roll with that. Joshua Palmer is a guy who can explode or just drop the ball. I would say if you are a team that's desperate for points and that you're not consistently getting it from other places, I would start him. If you're a team that consistently gets points from other places and you can not really afford to just drop the ball, then again, it's very dependent on how your team looks. Like if I'm starting players that again can go off but don't necessarily do it all the time and are very inconsistent, I probably wouldn't start Palmer, because then it's a do or die week any given week. But like I said, if your team's really consistent, you can probably slot in Palmer, because it's like you're not counting on it, but it's definitely a nice boost. Going down, Michael Pittman Jr. against Dallas D. I'm not starting any no Colts receivers this week, boys. And if they do good, they do good. But starting them against Dallas D, not interested. Cortland Sutton against Baltimore, I would start. Just wouldn't expect anything more than 14 points in PPR. It's the range that he's really just going to give you. But it's, 14 points in PPR is solid. You'll actually gladly take that. Juju Smith against Cincy, that's going to be tough. I know Juju has a history with Cincinnati. I would say look for Juju to probably get a touchdown this week, in all honesty. Knowing his relationship with Patrick Mahomes will plug him up. Look for Juju to get a touchdown this week. Jacoby Myers against Buffalo, that's going to be an interesting one, because I feel like New England's probably going to have to throw it a lot more than they'd like to. It's going to be hard to control the pace of the game with their running game, so they're going to have to pass it. I would say a decent flex play. Gabe Davis, Buffalo can and probably will have their way as long as Josh Allen is healthy. Very dependent on that. If he is, Gabe Davis, you got to just go. Deontay Johnson, same thing. Got to give it a go. The way Kenny Pickett's been playing against Atlanta D, that's not very good. Zay Jones, I would actually like to bench. Detroit's defense has been doing a lot better. I would sit on Zay Jones. Alan Lazard against Chicago. If you were going to start him any week, got to be this week. Start Alan Lazard against a terrible Chicago defense. Darius Slayton against Washington. I'm going to bench most players from Washington and New York, because it's just, like I said, I think it's going to be a 17-20 type of game. Hard-fought game, divisional matchup. Don't expect too much from guys like that. Treylon Burks, I would say it's going to be an okay start if you can foresee Tennessee trying to, throw and throw and throw because they're playing from behind. Traylon Burks might be a sneaky flex play. Adam Thielen against New York Jets. I will say this: New York's good, and Sauce is going to be on Justin Jefferson, which is going to make it for some great football. But no one can shut down Justin Jefferson. It's just not going to be something that, I mean, it might create for Adam Thielen, maybe, because Sauce will make it harder. But Jets D as a whole is still really good. I don't know. I would say I would try and stay away from it, but you could be, the smartest guy in the room and say, hey, since Jets D is so good, Robert Saleh is so good, they'll game plan against Justin Jefferson. That'll create more looks for Adam Thielen. I would respect it, man. Nico Collins against Cleveland and Brandon Cooks against Cleveland. I would avoid Houston starts as a whole. I know the whole Deshaun Watson thing is making this more interesting in that, like, oh, what if the Texans win? If there was ever time to win, it's against Deshaun Watson. The thing that a lot of people just don't seem to understand is that the Texans were allowing Deshaun Watson to do what he was doing. They knew about it. So it's like, it's not as righteous as people are making it out to be, because again, the Texans knew about it. They were letting Deshaun Watson do his very terrible things. So this isn't some sort of revenge game. This is a game that is spicy to the media, but that's it. Whether Deshaun Watson wins or loses, I mean, obviously people want him to lose. Texans knew about it. They let it happen. So why people think, oh, Texans need to win this for revenge. Is it revenge though? Anyway, controversy aside, Donovan Peoples-Jones might be a decent game to start him in a game with Deshaun Watson back. Obviously, you're not cheering for Deshaun, but as a football player, it's very evident that he brings a lot more skill to the table. So, could start Donovan Peoples-Jones, especially this week. Drake London against Pittsburgh, I would like to bench. I'm not a big fan of Marcus Mariota. Drake London had some crucial missed plays this past week. I would go ahead and say bench. Matt Collins against Chargers, could be a high scoring game, but I don't trust Matt Collins enough. I would bench. And then really just all these names except, let's see. So honestly, all these names I'd bench. You could argue DeAndre Carter could get a touchdown in what could be a high scoring game. Michael Gallup had a really solid last outing, so you could say you start Michael Gallup. Tyler Boyd could be in a high scoring affair with KC. I doubt it, but it could happen. And Paris Campbell's against Dallas D. So, like I said, against Dallas D, I'm not starting anyone with confidence. And then you just bench all these other guys. Going in anyway to 1 through 10, our favorite 3, it's going to be Tyreek Hill. These are good ones, man. This is going to be really tough. We're going to say Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, and A.J. Brown against Tennessee. I really think he's going to go out there and just lay it down on him. He's been waiting for this for a while. He knows Jalen Hurts is going to get him some love. 11 through 20, we're going to go T. Higgins. I doubt Jamar Chase plays, but if he does, obviously Jamar Chase against KC, that game will be too high scoring. And then Garrett Wilson at 17, for sure, locked and loaded. 21 through 30. Brandon Ayuk. Juju Smith-Schuster. And Devonta Smith. Definitely locked and loaded as my top 3 for 21 through 30. And 31 through 40. We're going to go Gabe Davis. Alan Lazard. And Treylon Burks. And last but not least, 41 through 50, we're going to roll with Michael Gallup, Tyler Boyd, and Donovan Peoples-Jones. Week 13 is in the books in terms of the rankings video, but how are you guys doing? Hopefully great, hopefully bad. I actually watched, I never look back and see how I did on my rankings video, like ever, because I always kind of just like, I don't know, I not really into watching my videos all too often, but I actually watched my week 12 rankings video after the week 12 games, and I was like, yo, this is kind of accurate. Like, I definitely had some misses. I forgot what one of them was, but I said some stuff that was very, very true. And I was like, okay, not bad. Looking better on my resume. So hopefully this week can be the same thing where it's just consistent. Not obviously everything I'm going to say is going to be right, but again, consistent. So as always, appreciate y'all for watching. This has been Ollie Been Different on We Been Different. And we out.